Hi Year 6 and welcome to your second science lesson all about animals including humans. Your first lesson was all about the circulation system where we learned about the heart, veins, arteries and capillaries, and now we're going to move on to learning about blood. So this is our learning objective: to identify and name the main parts of the human circulatory system and describe the functions of the heart, blood vessels and blood. We've already looked at the heart. We've also looked at the blood vessels, that's your arteries, that's your veins, that's your capillaries, and today we're going to focus specifically on blood. So here's some key vocabulary you're going to need. Circulatory, which I'm struggling to pronounce today for some reason. Heart, blood, vessels, veins, arteries, oxygenated, deoxygenated, valve, exercise, and respiration. Most of those you'll already know, but if there's any that you're unfamiliar with, quickly go and research what they mean and then come back. Particularly make sure you know what oxygenated and deoxygenated mean. Okay, a really quick recap. On your piece of paper, remember you don't have to print anything out. Can you please write heart, lungs, veins, arteries and capillaries? And can then you tell me, just in one short sentence, what their main function is? At the end of this topic, we will be doing a quick assessment and you need to know what the main functions of these parts of the body are. So what is the main function of the heart? What is the main function of the lungs? What is the main function of the veins, the arteries, and the capillaries? Write a simple sentence for each on your piece of paper. Pause the video now to complete this task. Okay, so now that's done, when you submit your work, we'll be able to see which ones you're sure of and which ones you're not so sure of. And we'll be able to recap with you when you're back in school. So today we're moving on to blood, and there are four major components that make up your blood: plasma, red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Now, we've already done a little bit of work on red blood cells during a comprehension, but we're going to look at all four of these main components. These are the things that make up your blood. Now, there's a YouTube link there, which I'll put in the main body of your lesson description in Teams. And you can click and watch that, and that will talk you through some of the major components. If you can't access that, I'm going to summarize them for you now. At the end of this summary, I want you to be able to tell me what is the main function of each component. So what is the function of plasma, red blood cells, white blood cells and platelets, and also what percentage of the blood does each component make up. Remember, it should add up to 100%. So inside our blood vessels, like our arteries, our capillaries, our veins, we have this liquid, and it's made up of the four components: white blood cells, plasma, platelets, and red blood cells. You can see they're all individual cells within the liquid, which is the plasma. There's a little cartoon image. You can see that the plasma is the liquid, and then there's white cells, red blood cells, and platelets within that liquid. First of all, plasma. So plasma is the yellowish liquid portion of the blood that contains electrolytes, nutrients and vitamins and hormones, as well as red blood cells, white blood cells and platelets. So this is the yellowish liquid that makes your blood into the liquid form that it is. You can see there that when we've separated the blood, different parts of the blood out, so the plasma, the white blood cells, the platelets and the red blood cells in the diagram, that the plasma actually takes up a large chunk, almost, well, over 50%. And that plasma contains the red blood cells, the white blood cells and the platelets, as well as other helpful things like nutrients and vitamins. Red blood cells. There's a picture of some red blood cells. Look a little bit like red Cheerios. So red blood cells, they carry oxygen from your lungs to your heart and then to your muscles. Last week we learned about the process of oxygenating your red blood cells and deoxygenating them as they travel around the body, delivering oxygen to key parts of your body. They help also to remove the carbon dioxide, so they also take away waste. They contain hemoglobin, which combines with the oxygen. They have no nucleus and a biconcave shape to give them most space for oxygen. So the biconcave shape is the little dip in the middle. Okay. The key things here is you need to remember that red blood cells are important for carrying the oxygen around your body and removing the waste. So they're a little bit like a postman. Why? Well, because they travel around your body delivering the important things to where they need to be. In this case, the oxygen. Then we've got some white blood cells. They're not as common as your red blood cells. White blood cells are part of your immune system. So they help your body fight infections and diseases. And there's several ways they can do this, but in the diagram here, we've shown you how basically the white blood cells consume the pathogens or the foreign bodies, and they contain chemicals that can break down those other cells and viruses that shouldn't be in your body. So white blood cells help you fight infection. Certain types of white blood cells produce antibodies to fight infections. White blood cells are clever. Certain white blood cells, called lymphocytes, can produce memory cells, so that if the body is infected again, it can fight it quickly. This is how injections or immunity works. Your body recognizes different infections and different illnesses and can fight them quicker. So your white blood cells are a little bit like a policeman. Why? Because they protect you, they help keep you safe, they fight off unwanted intruders in your body. Then we've got our platelets, and these help the blood to clot if you get cut. If you get cut, we know we bleed, but very quickly the bleeding stops and a scab forms. This is the job of the platelets. They can clot the cut so that more blood isn't escaping. So they're a little bit like a doctor. Why? Because they heal you when things are broken. So the blood is made up of all these different things: plasma, white blood cells and platelets, and red blood cells. Red blood cells make up about 44% of the blood. The plasma is 55%. White blood cells are 0.05% and platelets are 0.05%. You can see most of it is red blood cells and plasma. 90% of the 55% of the plasma is actually water. If you want, it might be helpful to make a note of some of these percentages. Now that I've quickly summarised for you the different functions of the different components of the blood, see if you can write them down. Write plasma, red blood cell, white blood cells and platelets on your piece of paper, and then next to them tell me what the main function is. What is their job in the blood? And then also next to it make a note of the percentage of that component is in the blood. If you have forgotten what the functions are or what the percentages of any of these components are, make sure you rewind the video and go back. I would really recommend watching the YouTube video I provided at the beginning of the lesson so that you get a really good overview of the different functions of the blood.